are the Org. Our mission is to assimilate Star Trek The Next Generation, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and beer. Lots of beer.
Hello, friends!
Hello!
Welcome to bOrgCast 8.8. And we have news.
News?
Yeah, news is starting to come out about the new TV series.
Oh.
Collider.com interviewed Brian Fuller about the new show, and apparently it's going to be an arc plot with 13 episodes.
Okay.
Of flexible lengths, thanks to the streaming way they're providing it. It's going to be a mixed progressive cast, and Fuller strongly hinted there would be a character who's gay.
Well, about bloody time for Star Trek,
True
isn't
enough.
it, really?
Filming starts in September through to March next year, and there are going to be more announcements at Comic-Con, so for a change I'm going to be really paying attention to what's said at Comic-Con, so it's all getting very exciting.
It is. Whereas on the Axonar front, it would appear that CBS have issued a whole load of new guidelines.
Yes, it's like, yes, you're free to carry on with your film, but
Yeah.
you can't make the film you wanted to make with the people that you filmed.
Yeah, which is just like, oh, bollocks. Yeah.
Oh dear. Never mind.
Never mind.
Last time on Star Trek The Next Generation.
Wayne Peters is in the process of catching up with broadcasts.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things, he and I had a conversation on Twitter where he is taking your side on the whole perfectionism versus completism thing. And I pointed out that if an apple was 10% bad, I would cut out the 10% and eat the rest, which was then 100% tasty. He seemed to imply he would throw the whole apple away, which I then said would involve watching nothing. So I think I still win the argument.
Okay.
On that front. But he also tweeted about Generations.
Mm-hmm.
And he agrees with me that it has no good point, it is not worth watching.
Yeah, he doesn't like the Defiant design either, so...
Yeah, no, that's true. He doesn't. I do. I like the Defiant.
Hey, excellent. Well, we shall be seeing a bit of the Defiant in at least one of tonight's episodes.
Yes!
Which is Destiny.
A daring mission of peace.
We have to be prepared for trouble.
A Bajoran prophecy of doom.
We are on the verge of a great disaster.
Beyond time.
You believe the prophecy is coming true?
Yes, I do.
Beyond space.
The Sword of Stars.
One fateful decision.
Saw the carrier wave cause the wormhole to open.
One man's destiny.
Fire!
Next time on Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
Relatively action-packed trailer.
Yeah, well, it's a good
Brilliant
episode. So, we have a very long teaser. I kept thinking I'd missed it.
Yeah.
But anyway, you open, there are Cardassian scientists called Ulani and Gilora who are coming to the station to help put in a subspace relay that would enable communications through the wormhole between the Alpha Quadrant and the Gamma Quadrant. References are made to the recent peace treaty and to the temperature changes and the fact that the Cardassians like it hotter.
Yeah, so they've got the quarters they're staying in, they've got the temperature turned up.
And then you've got Quark appearing with these bottles of Kanar, and he quotes a rule of acquisition, and then Dax is like, yes, it's the 34th rule. He's like, no. And I love the mix-up. Peace is good for business is one of them, and war is good for business is the other.
Next one, yeah.
Yeah, I like that. But it turns out the Kanar has gone off.
Yeah.
But I couldn't help wondering, but it's not in the episode, it's just where my brain went, are the Cardassians working on this relay because they believe as a result of the peace treaty they're getting Deep Space Nine back?
Yeah. Well, it's not mentioned. Later on, there's reference made to it's basically one of the reasons they're having it is for an early warning system for the Dominion, which makes sense.
Yes.
Although there's also mention of them still wanting to explore the Gamma Quadrant, which doesn't make sense. But anyway, you can see the Cardassians wanting the early warning system in place and therefore happy to work alongside the Federation to get it together, basically, because they're as much under threat as anybody.
That's true. Okay. Then you get to meet Vedek Yarka.
Yay! You knew him from somewhere.
I knew him from Babylon 5.
Yes, indeed.
Is he the rabbi?
He is. Rabbi Leo Mayers.
Aha.
From And the Rock Cried Out, No Hiding Place. Mm-hmm. But he's in an awful lot else as well. This is Eric Avari. Last seen in Star Trek in Unification Part 1 as Answerphone Klingon.
Really?
Yes.
Bloody hell, I had no idea that was him.
I'm sorry, but Gowron is not available to take your call.
Really? That was him?
It was him.
Bloody hell.
He was in the Stargate movie and the TV series.
I've seen the movie.
Yep. Independence Day.
Seen that. Really? What's
Yes.
he a middleman?
Lord Jeremiah Purcell. We're just doing a middleman rewatch, so we haven't got to that episode. So
Oh, okay.
several episodes of Heroes.
Which I may or may not, because it's been a while since I watched any of that.
The Daredevil movie as Elektra's dad.
Really?
Yep.
Okay.
Cheers.
Cheers?
Yeah, he's been in a lot, basically. I mean, he's a fantastic actor, and he brings
He's
some
brilliant.
real gravitas to Yarka. I mean, you can't just dismiss him because he's got that sort of air of authority about him.
Yeah.
And I like the fact he's been given different coloured robes to the usual Vedex as well, so it makes him... He's quite clearly not an orthodox
Yeah.
Vedek in this sense, yeah.
And Vedek Yarka says that the prophets say that the Cardassians will bring destruction.
We're doomed.
He's effectively
Yep.
Private Fraser for the episode.
And he quotes Tricor's third prophecy. And it's about vipers returning to their nest in the sky, trying to peer through the gates, and the temple will burn. And the prophecy, you get the specific details more and more as the episode goes on. And you get to meet the Cardassian scientists, who are lovely. I just want to hug them.
Yeah, originally, this is based on a script that was submitted for the second season and concerned a prophecy of joy, with Sisko being part of something wonderful.
Fanar.
Yeah, but it was rather felt that lacked jeopardy, unsurprisingly.
Yeah.
Starfleet was going to get worried that Sisko was going native in terms of embracing the emissary role, which will be touched on later on.
Yeah.
But yes, unsurprisingly, they thought a prophecy of doom would be rather more, gripping. Yes. And a better cliffhanger, let's face it.
Yeah, this is true. So that's your teaser, is that the wormhole is going to be destroyed because of the Cardassians. And then when you come back, you meet the lovely Cardassian scientist who I just want to hug.
Come on, tell me who you are. 'Cause I really want to know.
Okay, we got Ulani Belor, who's played by Wendy Robbie, who was a regular in Twin Peaks. And if you're a fan of Twin Peaks, by the way, do check out Tapao.
Yep.
Twice as bright, half as long, who are currently covering it. And the other one who you recognise...
Yeah, Tracy Scoggins.
Yeah, Gilora Rijal of Babylon 5 Captain Lockley fame, who has a wonderful Egyptian look to her hair, doesn't she?
No, see, I was going to do... Are we doing the hair now? Because I have a whole load of hair-based comments.
Go on, then.
Give me a head with hair, long, beautiful hair, shining, gleaming, streaming, flaxen, waxen. Give me down to there, shoulder length longer. Here, baby, there, mama, everywhere, daddy, daddy. Throw it, show it, long as I can grow my hair.
Okay, because her hair is just fucking odd. She's got this hairband that matches this bit she's attached to the bottom, and it gives her this strange sort of top knot thing. Mm-hmm. Whereas the hair on Ulani is more what you'd expect from a Cardassian woman, if that makes... We've seen that design before. But Kira's hair also, I noticed, is a little different in this. It's not quite as short. She's beginning to go a little bit longer. It's kind of brushed into the side where it is, but it's beginning to look a little more feminine and a little less aggressive.
Well, none of us are always sort of fighting against them making her hair look, all beautiful and stuff. And she always claimed that she's in the military, she would keep it smart. She was used to being in the resistance. So basically, when she gets her way, that her hair's shorter. When she doesn't, it's more long and...
Okay, because I wondered whether it was supposed to reflect somehow progression of the character, that she's a little bit less aggressive now than she had been. Thinking of the way she is with the Cardassians now, they've got the peace treaty.
Possibly.
I don't know. But, yeah, in the next episode, we get some bloody awful hair with...
Yeah, no, the hairstylist has been smoking something. I can't
don't you think? Don't you think? Yeah.
But despite that, I do think Tracy Scoggins looks incredibly hot as a Cardassian, so...
Really?
Oh, yeah.
I don't.
Apparently she took to walking around the Paramount lot in her makeup, scaring visitors. Security called to the set to have her returned.
Cool. No, I don't find her hot as a Cardassian at all. She's just got bloody old hair. And there's one particular shot from behind where they're having a conversation. It's a little bit later on in the episode. They're having a conversation, and then she spins round in her chair, and that shot from behind just emphasises just how fucking odd her hair is. I love the awkwardness of the sort of initial exchanges between the Cardassian scientists and...
Cole Meany is brilliant throughout this episode because he just plays awkward wonderfully. He just does not want to be there and does not want to be working with them quite clearly. And that awkwardness just gets ratcheted up as things get revealed. But he's really good at this.
He is. So you have this conversation where they're talking about the phase variance, because Dax is like, I'm not sure that this is going to work. He's like, oh, well, you've got the 1% phase variance, and, we don't find that acceptable. And he's like, he's bridling, isn't he, at this idea it's not acceptable. And then they announce that another colleague, Deja, will be arriving later. So instead, there will now, whereas the bonkers Vedek had said, there will be 3 Vipers, there will be 3 Cardassians. Now suddenly there are 3 Cardassians, and you can see Kiri's reaction.
3 Cardassians! Ha ha ha! Sorry.
What?
Carol from Sesame Street.
Okay. Odo's been doing some digging on Vedek Yarka, and he's not actually a Vedek anymore.
Yeah, he's been excommunicated.
He's been defrocked.
Yeah.
He's been defrocked as a result of protests against the Vedek Assembly regarding the peace treaty.
Well, let's face it, who's in charge of the Vedek Assembly? Yeah, she ain't going to put up with any nonsense, is she? You're out.
And then you find out that Sisko is uncomfortable with being the emissary, and it's something that Odo spotted. And Sisko's been all like, I'm not playing to this agenda, and then he claims he doesn't have an agenda. Whereas Odo, I'm with Odo. Odo says all humanoids have an agenda, and it can influence them even when they don't realise. I'm like, yeah, everyone has an agenda, don't they?
But we do, yes.
And then you find out that Morn's got food poisoning because the Quark's gone off canal, which I like. Then you have Vedek Yarka meeting with Kira, trying to sway her and
being very manipulative.
And trying to tell her that she can't compartmentalise her faith anymore. She's got to be open about it, and she hasn't got her faith. What has she got? And then you have a conversation it's Dax and O'Brien with the Cardassian scientist in Quarks, and it turns out that Tobin Dax met this particular Cardassian poet. The Cardassian scientists are interested in this, and that's just like a nice little touch, reference to the fact that Dax has got past lives and whatever. And they talk about the fact they don't really like Cardassian food. But then Deja turns up, and my notes, even though it was revealed later in the episode, my notes say "from Obsidian Order?" ? Even though I didn't actually remember this episode at all, other than there were scientists. And I remembered the whole one of them fancies O'Brien, and I'd not remembered anything else. But straight I'm like, yeah, she's Obsidian Order, she's too shifty.
Well, exactly, she's Shifty McShiftington.
Yeah.
The Cardassian food that gets served, by the way, they
look like those century eggs that Ashens eats.
Well, they also look like the eggs that Picard was made to eat in Chain of Command, so at least there's some continuity there as well.
Yeah, but manky century eggs, blech. And then it turns out that Gilora is not happy with O'Brien's modifications to the station systems that bring it up to Starfleet specs. And he sort of basically says, I feel like a spare part. So she's like, get me a cup of tea then, which I like.
Fantastic, sparking off each other. Yeah. And at one point she literally goes, talk to the hand,
Yeah. Brilliant, love it. And then on the Defiant, they're out near the wormhole, and suddenly a comet appears, which Major refers to as the Sword of Stars. And then you get Sisko going, a word in your shell, like.
Yeah, the comet is a really good effect, and it was a model rather than a CG creation.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it's very effective.
Looks pretty.
Yes. You'd have thought Sisko would have taken Kira aside into his ready room. But unfortunately, they've not built the ready room yet. A boo! So
not a boo.
So instead, he takes her to his quarters, which doesn't seem hugely appropriate, but never mind.
Well, I'm not sure they're even his quarters, because there's a room with loads of...
They're just some 8 quarters, because they just reuse it for everybody.
No,
but
it's a vacant space with no one in it.
Yeah, maybe. But the fact is, because it's so small, at one point he's standing right by the door and magically it's not opening.
Yeah, that could be like the lift at Willowdene, though. I don't understand that lift. I've got stuck in it before now. If you don't stand in the right place, it won't open, or it will open, or it shuts you in it. Door sensors, I get that.
Oh, right, okay.
Kira tells Sisko that she believes he's the emissary, and she tries to convince him to cancel the mission. And then you've got Gilora and O'Brien, and she's just not trusting him to do anything. And he's like, well, in my experience, you people, can't handle this. And he's like, what do you mean, you people? You think this about humans? She's like, no, males. Which I like. Her experience is that men don't have a head for this sort of thing. It's nice to... You still get this sort of sexism now, but not as much as you did at the time.
Yeah.
And it's one of the things I like about science fiction as a whole, that it's a way of exposing something wrong in our society through the use of...
And it turns it on its head as well, which is quite nice. But
I like it, because a lot of people would say that women don't have the head to be engineers. Mm-hmm. So, it's exposing that as bollocks. I like it when science fiction does that. And then it turns out it's all gone a bit Pete Tong. And the carrier wave was affected by the wormhole when they're trying all these tests.
But you haven't spoken about the relay station.
No, there's a reason for that. It's just a relay station. It doesn't.
But we need to get anal about relay stations.
No. You want to have a conversation about relay stations, you can make that a mini-sode on Space Dock Jewelry.
Well, now, you see, this is interesting, because actually it's a reuse of a model that we have seen in quite recently.
Have we?
Yes.
Why would I care?
Because it's in your favourite film from Generations. It's the Amagosa Star Observatory, turned on its side with a few bits sawn off.
If it's turned on its side with a few bits sawn off, I'm not likely to recognise it. B, it's a fucking space array, not even a fucking spaceship.
As you probably noticed, it doesn't particularly look very Cardassian, does it? Because originally it was a Federation station.
I don't fucking care. It's not a ship.
And I bet you're also asking, how the hell did they get that in the Defiant's cargo bay when clearly it's actually much bigger than Defiant? I mean, presumably it folded up somehow.
Yeah, folding, duh.
But, the cargo bay in the Defiant can't be very big. So it was, that's a severe case of folding, that is.
Yeah, there's no reason.
I would have liked to have seen it all unfurl, but, can't have everything, can you?
I don't care.
Really?
Bloody hell, you've got your other podcast now. Do fucking arrays as a fucking mini-sode.
Hey, says she who appeared on the last space dock.
Yeah, but I was talking about a cool ship.
Oh, right. It's different, is it?
Yes.
Says she.
I wasn't talking about fucking ready rooms or fucking space arrays, was I?
Well, maybe you should have been.
No.
Because after all, there are ready rooms on Birds of Prey. You should have brought that up.
No. No, I wouldn't. I genuinely wouldn't go on a cast about ready rooms or space arrays or any of that bollocks.
Well, you're on one now.
No, this isn't what the cast is about.
That's what you think.
Believe me, if I was editing, this would not appear.
Just as well I am then, isn't it? Ooh.
But the next time you complain about editing, remember, I could do it. I have done it before.
It would be about 5 minutes an episode.
Well, I'd cut out all the bollocks anyway.
As I say, 5 minutes an episode.
No, that's not quite true. I spout rather a lot of the bollocks. But
never.
Yeah. Anyway. No, I didn't notice the fucking array.
Space Dot Jury, folks, worth catching.
Yeah, I got...
A very, very drunk Anne-Marie.
I was very drunk and very angry.
Yeah, just a tad.
Yeah. I went off on one a bit.
Just slightly.
But you was going fucking on about... What was it? How if it's teal and beige, it's Romulan or something.
Yeah, we had a big discussion on colour schemes of Romulan.
Yeah, it was just like, you were just talking out your fucking arse. And you tend to complain that your ships don't win, and I watched while you picked a ship, and you picked a shit one, and it's like, that's why you lose.
Sound like me? Anyway, let's move on.
Okay, right. Anyway, it's all got a bit peaked on. The carrier wave affected the wormhole, altered the gravity, and the comet is now on a path to the wormhole. They talk about possibly deflecting the comet, but it's not straightforward. So there's a meeting reconvened at DS9, and apparently there was a just under 2% chance of this gravimetric inversion, but it wasn't part of the Cardassians' report because the military won't allow mission reports to look too dangerous. But it looks like they may have found a solution to the problem. And I loved the whole thing about Cisco saying, you know, when they're complaining, the scientists are complaining about this directive from the military. I love that Cisco goes, you know, well, that would be an internal Cardassian matter, and my brain went Father Ted.
Yeah, that'd be an ecumenical matter, yes.
So then you have Gilora and O'Brien working to make modifications to the Defiant, and she suddenly goes,
I assure you, I'm quite fertile. I could provide you with many healthy children, if that's your concern, but quite frankly, I think you're getting a little ahead of yourself.
Children? What are you talking about? I already have a child. And a wife.
You're married?
Yes, happily.
Then why have you been leading me to believe that you wanted me?
I haven't. All we've done since we've met is argue.
I took your overt irritability toward me as a signal that you wish to pursue some physical relationship.
Of course. Well, that's how Cardassians do things.
Oh my.
That's a line, isn't it?
Yeah, he's like, what the fuck? And it turns out that Cardassians court each other through sort of being argumentative. If that was true, the amount of people who would think that I had courted them.
Yeah, yes.
No, I'm not a Cardassian, it don't work like that, I'm just angry.
There's another instance where wedding rings would have come in handy as well. We've had this before. They really need some symbol of being married in the future, even if it isn't actually wedding rings.
Yeah, a tattoo.
Yeah, something, a badge, anything.
Yeah. O'Brien then digs himself a hole. Of course I'm not attracted to you. Oh, no, that's not what I'm... Yeah. Then you cut to Cisco, who's looking up prophecies about the emissary. And Dax advises him to make his own decisions. What would you do if you didn't know about the prophecy? You know, make your own decisions on that basis. And then the Defiant is firing at the Comet, supposedly with this modified weapons array. But then the weapons relay explodes, and the modifications were never online. And Deja sabotaged the coupling. And it's nice that you get Tracy Scoggins' character, Gilora, is that her name?
Yeah.
Gilora. We all adore her, Gilora.
And I thought that might come up at some point, yes.
Gilora. And she outs this Cardassian as a member of the Obsidian Order. And she's just glaring at her all the time. And she just says, no, she sabotaged it. And they're like, right, put her in quarters. Because the Obsidian Order...
Yes, because they don't appear to have a brig on the Defiant either, so... That's bizarre.
No, but why would...
It's not the Enterprise B, this. It's half of it isn't built yet. We don't get to see the engine room for at least another season, I don't think.
No, but why would it have a brig, though?
Well, for instances like this, obviously.
Okay.
Taking prisoners. I mean, it's a combat ship. You'd expect to be taking prisoners at some point. So, yeah, you'd expect a brig.
Enough. Okay.
Almost as much as you'd expect a bloody ready room. But anyway, move on.
Oh, dear.
We'll get there.
Fine. I don't see the point of them.
The point of them is that you don't end up sitting on your bunk looking like sad talking to your second in command.
Fine. But they don't have to have fucking fishing, alright?
No, they don't. Only the most stylish have fishing, you're right.
No, they just don't need them.
Your top-of-the-line ready rooms come with fish. Move on.
No. Just fuck off. Anyway, they decide that they can try and do something to salvage the situation, but using a shuttlecraft, the Defiant's too big. So Defiant's leaving, and initially it's going to be Kira in command, but Kira wants to go with Cisco because she believes she's supposed to help the emissary. So Defiant leaves with Dax in command, and
very impressive she looks too in the command team. Yeah.
And the shuttle then manoeuvres between the comet fragments and activates a subspace shield.
Yeah, this is sadly the last appearance of the Type 18 shuttle pod.
Oh, what a fucking shame.
Before they lost the model. Yeah, it is a shame. It's a nice model.
Is it?
Yeah.
One shuttlecraft just looks like another. They're all boxes.
They don't. You see, you just don't pay attention. That's your problem.
I don't care. It looks
at one point you even get a little Kira visible through the view screen. It's very good.
Fine. They look box-like.
That doesn't look like a box.
They look too box-like for me to find them remotely attractive, like a lot of cars. I'm only going to find a spaceship or a car attractive if they look different.
Well, this does look quite different for a shuttlecraft. But anyway, never mind, move on.
I don't like shuttlecraft unless they're sort of sleek somehow and bird-like, and I think maybe Romulan shuttles do. No,
Romulan shuttlecrafts are some of the best, I doubt.
Yeah, no, they look quite nice, but most of the shuttlecraft are shit. Boxes on wheels.
No, they're not.
If you could make one for a 2-year-old, they're shit.
I mean, admittedly, the original Series 1 is literally a box on legs. But that was, the best they could do in those days.
Yeah, no. If it's 2 box-like, I could make it for a 2-year-old. If I could make it for a 2-year-old, it is therefore shit.
Well, I think you'd be hard-pressed to make a shuttlepod looking as good as this one.
I could do it out of cake.
Okay. That wouldn't be very good for effect shots. I mean, it would melt, for starters, under the lights.
No, the point is I could make
New approach to effects for films. Forget your CGI. Oh, no, that's old hat. No, we're making our models out of cake.
What I mean is the shape is too easy.
Hang on, that effect shot doesn't look like the previous one. Oh, sorry, I got hungry and ate a bit. How are you lighting that model? Candles.
What I mean is, if I could make it out of cake, it's not a good design, it's too easy. I couldn't make a Romulan shuttlecraft out of cake, because it looks nice.
I can't believe that's your criteria. Can I make it out of cake?
Are you going to add that to Space Dock?
Can it be... How does it score if it can be made out of cake for realisation?
Sorry, but that's the way my brain works. If I could make it out of cake or out of boxes, I don't like it.
It works in the loosest form. Anyway, move on.
Sorry, that was a bit of a weird tangent, wasn't it?
Slightly.
Sorry. Anyway, the shuttle's manoeuvring through the wormhole with this subspace shield, and it's trying to protect the wormhole from the silithium. Some of it leaks through, but Sisko says that let's go carry through for our inertia and create more power to shields. So they come out the other end, and then suddenly the test signal is now reaching them, and it turns out that the silithium wedged the wormhole open, so the prophecy has come true, but in a different way. The 3 Vipers were the comet fragments, not the Cardassians. The comms relay was peering through the gates. The silithium ignited the wormhole, forcing it open, and the emissary used the Sword of Stars. Which is kind of nice, because it's like... You have earlier on this concept of maybe prophecies could come true because the wormhole aliens don't experience time as linear. So therefore they could have got the information to the Bajorans in some way, shape or form. But the issue is interpretation. And I like the fact that the Vedek now agrees that he was wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, you wouldn't expect Wynne to admit she was wrong, but here he's quite willing to do so.
Yeah, and also you have Sisko listening to him, and he talks about the 4th prophecy, where the emissary faces a fiery trial and is forced to choose.
Between one courier or another, presumably.
Well, the thing is, fiery trial and forced to choose. I'm not going to name the episode. To be fair, I don't know the name of the episode. B, I don't even know which season it is, but... There is an episode that comes later where the emissary is forced to choose. So this does happen.
Mm-hmm.
This 4th prophecy does come true.
There we go.
So I liked it. I think it's a brilliant episode. I think it does very well at exploring various attitudes to faith. I love the Cardassian scientists. I like the fact we've got some sympathetic Cardassians. I like the fact that we've got references to Cardassians wanting different temperatures, a few more references to their culture. I like the fact that, as you would expect, the Obsidian Order woman is a cunt. I love it, sorry.
Yeah, it's good. It's good stuff.
Yes.
So, let's find out what other people think. We've heard from Mark. Destiny or prophecy is an issue when you have real time-travelling aliens as prophets, or O'Brien the Cardassian love god. The episode's story structure is quite effective. As the narrative unfolds, every act culminates with some sort of unexpected surprise that makes the prophecy seem that much closer to coming true. Just when it appears Sisko is clear from any more problems, something comes up just in time to send us into what would be a commercial break. The heart of Destiny is a crossing of Kira's faith and her duty. How can she just ignore something she has believed her entire life? Kira reveals to Sisko her ongoing difficulty to see him as simply her commanding officer and not the religious icon he has become in Bajoran lore, exploring finally what Sisko's messianic status means for Kira. Frankly, I can't think of a single incident in the first 2.5 seasons which suggests that Kira did regard Sisko with awe at all, even if she, as she claims here, kept it locked down in work mode. It's got a point, to be honest.
Yeah.
And, the next episode is the first time we'll have seen the prophets since the pilot.
Yeah.
Which is quite telling, isn't it? At the same time, Sisko is put in the difficult position of being part of the prophecy. He's never been comfortable with the label of emissary, and this episode is really about the first to deeply look at how Sisko feels about it. In the constant tension between science and faith that has always been explored in Deep Space Nine, and later BSG, this is the episode that got the balance exactly right. It could have been science, could have been prophecy, two sides of the same coin, very well done. This is true. Mm-hmm. It's a very clever ending, as Yarka's misinterpretation of the prophecy proves to Ben that he should take note of them just in case. At the same time, by having the prophecy still actually come true, the writers affirm that religion and Bajoran beliefs still remain characteristic of the series. They also prove that it's quite possible to do a story that isn't derivative. Kudos to this rather cerebral outing. Compare this treatment to the way religion is presented in Next Generation's Devil's Due, and the differences are shocking.
Yeah, they
do
are.
Not remind us of that episode, or worse still, is it Survivors? The one with the proto-Vulcan species in the third season, where they've been down the Mintarkans.
Oh, bloody hell.
Yes. And now I open the whole creative can of worms. It's also the problem with the show in that the Bajorans' religion has more credence than any real-world religion in the show. I mean, if you have real-time travelling aliens as prophets who the cast chat with every once in a while, by default the prophecy may very well be true, because the wormhole aliens can literally see into our future, because they're unbounded by time. Hell, you could just stop on by and ask them. Same as it makes sense to worship in the DC Comics world as God show up all the bloody time, and that the verisimilitude of a deity is a key factor in determining the rationality of a religion in media as in the real world. It's a matter of faith, but here it's a matter of facts. And it's interesting to compare this religion with the Dominion faith and the Founders, where they have built a cult around themselves. For me, the true message of this episode is not science versus religion, but Kira's conflicting roles as faithful Bajoran and second officer on a station, which it does present very well. Saying that, I respect this episode for being balanced. I like this one a lot.
Yep.
Can't argue with any of that. Splendid.
Thank you.
Right. Let's go with Doreen next.
And Doreen Wright. Hi, Destiny. The Vedek, or should I say Vedek no more, was quite annoying when he was trying to claim that the prophecy was crystal clear, when in fact it is as clear as mud, and could refer to anything.
That's not untypical, let's face it. People's interpretation of their scripture quite often is clear as day to them, but not necessarily to anybody else.
Yeah. So what I like about Babylon 5 is Delenn talks about how prophecy is fluid, is open to interpretation. It's not fixed for the Minbari anyway.
Yep.
Anywho, sorry, different show. And Doreen continues, there were bits I knew should be funny, but they didn't quite work for me. Like when they're sitting around the conference table and the Cardassian scientist nearly said Terra Nor rather than Deep Space Nine. This didn't even make me feel particularly uncomfortable. However, when the third Cardassian colleague arrived, the reaction of the first two was classic. It was interesting to see the preconceived prejudices coming out in the different ways the scientists interacted with Sisko and the females compared to other crew members. I felt that the sexual signal misinterpretation scenes were just so 90s. The Defiant really needs a ready room.
Yeah! You see? Well done, Doreen.
What have you done? Doreen, what have you done? She says so that tellings off don't need to take place in sleeping quarters. There was nobody asleep in them, it didn't matter. It was the nearest available space.
Yeah, it did look stupid though, with him snookered up in that little bunk.
She says, at least the arrogant Vedek No More admitted he'd been wrong at the end of the episode.
Mm-hmm.
I think I might have enjoyed this storyline a wee bit more if the prophecy had been less flowery and seemed more specific. Because the end of the episode was pretty obvious to me from the moment I heard of the ravings of the religious nutter.
There we are. Interesting. Thank you, Doreen.
Thank you, I think.
And we've heard from Sampu. Hi, I'm currently on a holiday in Germany, so I won't give full feedback this week, but there is one point I wanted to mention about Destiny, which is a very good episode, by the way. I find it very interesting how Bajorans can rationalise their religion. Kira is basically able to explain that the gods of her religion are aliens living in a wormhole. Does she really believe it, or does she only say it to get Sisko to believe her? Are Bajorans in general able to keep their faith even though it can be scientifically explained, or is Kira an exception? Douglas Adams said that God refuses to prove that he exists because proof denies faith and without faith he is nothing. But that logic does not seem to hold here. Very true. So anyway, this episode had a very good look at how the scientifically driven Federation and religious Bajorans are able to coexist. I'll be back with full feedback for the next set of episodes. Sampo, well, have a great time in Deutschland, sir.
Yeah, enjoy. They have good beer.
Yeah. But yeah, it's the second one to pick up on the fact that actually, in some ways, it isn't your usual science versus religion debate here,
no,
because the religion actually really has it's a lot more provable than most faiths are, because there they are, the prophets sitting in, next door.
Yeah. And we've also heard from Leggett Brian.
Unsurprisingly, for a Cardassian episode, I suppose. And
he says, "Salutations, Orgs. I cannot believe what I've just seen. Many people, myself included, have picked holes in various episodes and pointed out numerous plot flaws. Sadly, this episode has the single largest plot hole I can think of, including some of the large ones yet to come. I am, of course, referring to the fact that O'Brien rebuffs Gilora in favour of remaining with Keiko. I mean, seriously? Think of all the benefits you're missing out on, Miles. With Keiko, there's all the arguing and placating you need to do when she thinks she's right, but really she's wrong. But with Gilora, you don't need to worry. Cardassians are never wrong. Plus, Gilora has useful skills. If something breaks down around the quarters, she could help repair it. But how often will you have a gardening crisis on a space station? Other than that, an excellent episode that shines some new lights on the great Cardassian peoples. Until next time, Leggett Brian."
No, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And happy birthday.
Happy birthday to you.
Okay.
Can I sing the rest?
I kind of felt like it was coming, but then you stopped.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Leggett Brian. Happy birthday to you.
Yes. That brings us on to MP3 feedback. Let's start with what Purry has to say about this one.
Hello Orgs, Purry here to talk about Destiny, the episode, not the concept, or indeed the nightclub in Glasgow. I don't even know if that still exists. That's how long it's been since I've been out clubbing in Glasgow. It was a horrible club. Never go there. Anyway, on to the episode, and I quite enjoyed this one. Bit of a mishmash was the problem. Arguably, they could have probably made an episode and a subplot out of two of the many items we have here. We have, I think probably the meatiest stuff, I'd say, is the Kira Sisko things. Essentially, Sisko dealing with his position as the emissary, and indeed Kira knowing that her boss is the emissary and how she deals with it. And indeed, it's something we've not really looked at over the past 2 seasons, is that effectively, and I'm trying to think of a decent religious comparison, you'd probably better this, but essentially it's like, I suppose, perhaps a Jewish person whose boss is Moses. Basically they're told, yes, this is your big prophet, but they're also your boss, and they act just like a boss. They don't sit there and say, now, don't treat me like a prophet. It's literally, no, I'm a boss, I do a thing. In fact, to an extent, it's like, I suppose, your boss being one of the apostles, and he's an atheist. It's that sort of thing. And so we do have this idea of that, we do still see Kira's spiritual side and her slowly believing the prophecies. And in fact, there was a good discussion with Sisko about how the prophecies were made by aliens that live outside linear time. So it's entirely possible that most of the Bajoran prophecies actually have some truth in them. This isn't just ravings of some drugged up madman. These are aliens that can't, when I say see the future, don't even know the concept of past and future. And so that's quite an interesting take on it as well. Again, an interesting take on the faith idea that technically nothing Kira believes is untrue, it's just perhaps interpretation. Not quite as well done as other series have done it, but still an interesting part. And indeed, I like the interaction with that, and Sisko driving himself nuts with the prophecies and that sort of thing. That was really good stuff. I also like Sisko's discussion with Odo, that he's uncomfortable, but to be honest, these 2 episodes where Odo goes around trolling people by picking up a lot of their personality traits, sort of the things that they're believing. Was it just this episode? They blur together a little, but I did quite like in this one that Odo kept showing up and just saying, this is the thing that you believe, so there. The subplot with the Cardassians, I think the problem was that there's kind of a plot in that in itself with the 3 Cardassian scientists and an Obsidian Order saboteur, and you kind of feel that something really interesting happened just off camera, which is a shame because I like the idea of having good Cardassians, and indeed I loved the sort of over-enforced politeness with Sisko and Kira and the two Cardassians coming, and then finally, I'm glad we all got through that. And it was almost like both sides were really nervous that one of them was going to say something stupid. And indeed the look on one of the scientists' face when she accidentally calls Deep Space Nine Terok Nor was great. And I did enjoy the sort of slightly farcical chatting up. I mean, let's face it, O'Brien is stronger man possibly than I would be, I couldn't tell, but considering that him and Keiko get on patchily at best, he still turns down Cardassian Tracy Scoggins. And that was a cute Cardassian Tracy Scoggins. I did love the scene, actually. It was well written. For all that it should be cringeworthy nonsense, I did like the way that worked. I think it helps that you had two good actors in there really putting their all into it. So I think that's my main gripe with this episode we had that you had an extra good plot there, which I think sadly got burned on basically being a B plot to a very meaty and quite decent A plot as well. But I think the problem with all these things mashed in, it just feels like you're being shortchanged in everything, which is rather a shame. I think there's 2 episodes in this basically. We also did have a nice visual of the Defiant shuttlecraft travelling through the wormhole with the 3 big chunks of comet, which is nice as well. But so overall a decent. I have no real qualms with this episode, just I think they could have done more with it. I do feel that we've missed out on something. So I will be back shortly to talk about Profit Motive, which is a Ferengi episode, so brace yourselves, guys.
Yeah, turning down Cardassian Tracy Scoggins, why would you? Other than possibly the hair. A thought occurred to me in terms of the whole Sisko emissary Kira working under him thing. Actually, it possibly is like if you're a Roman Catholic, working as the Pope's secretary, because the Pope's a bit, obviously for Roman Catholics, a big deal. So to be constantly in his presence must be kind of difficult if you're a Roman Catholic and trying to get on with your job.
You don't feel the same about the Archbishop of Canterbury?
No, we've never held the Archbishop of Canterbury in quite that high regard. I mean, as much as I quite like the current one, it's nowhere near comparable. Not even slightly.
What about if you're like a real royalist, which I'm not?
Yeah, I guess if you were real and working for the Queen, yeah, I would imagine that would be a similar thing as well. Yeah, it must be hard, because I guess you see them all the times when they're completely exhausted and fallen asleep and the teeth falls out and stuff like that. It must be quite hard to still hold them in high regard when you see them at the lowest point. But anyway,
I don't really hold any human being in especially high regard on the grounds that they are a human being. I expect everyone to have foibles and be fallible, and no one person is superior to another.
Well, and don't I know it. But anyway...
Speaks the clergy wife, yeah.
Yes. But the whole thing about their relationship and Sisko's agnostic relationship to him being the emissary, I think is fair to describe it, will be explored a lot more in later episodes.
Yeah.
Cool, thank you, sir.
Thank you!
Drew and Tracy.
So we've just watched Deep Space Nine Destiny.
Yep.
This is quite a nice episode.
Yeah, I think it was...
thought-provoking?
Yep, thought-provoking, fun little episode.
Yeah. Again, as always, there's like a little side plot. And this week it was with Miles.
Poor Miles, he can't do right for doing wrong, can he?
And the Cardassian lady, I can't think what her name is now. But when she first came onto Deep Space Nine, I said she's going to turn out to be an evil one. She just had a bit of an evil...
She did have the look of evil.
Cut-eye look of face about her, and I just thought...
But she wasn't, though, was she?
She wasn't. She was
the
really
good
funny.
one. She's the one that grasped up the obsidian
Hendra.
older woman, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was funny, wasn't it?
When he was like, what?
Yeah, when she said about instigating the relations. Yeah,
and with childbearing readage, that was really funny.
It was very good subplot.
Yeah.
And the A plot was good. It was a bit of a classic science versus religion and prophecy and that, wasn't it?
A lot of thought-provoking. And we said, like, both Kira and Ben had, like, a lot of kind of, they were in difficult positions and they had to kind of hold their own.
Because they haven't really shown much of Kira's kind of real religious side, which she is, isn't she? She's a complete believer.
Well...
And we haven't seen any of that in ages.
No, and she's never called Ben the emissary before, has she? So she's never kind of put it out there that actually she does believe in that prophecy. But it wasn't like over the top in your face.
No, not at all.
I think it was dealt with quite subtly.
Yep. Yeah, so all in all, enjoyable episode. It was just a little bit of a kind of slower paced, but nothing slow about it. It was just all very enjoyable, I think.
Definitely. I didn't quite understand the beginning bit with Quark and the
Canar.
The Canar that had gone bad, and I just thought, was that a little bit
I think it's just a bit of a jokey thing, isn't it? Unfortunately, I think with Quark, he really is just a comedy element to a lot of these episodes, isn't he? And so that was his input to it.
And whilst I cannot complain for a second that we saw him, there was like no input from Bashir in this episode. It was nice to see him Bashir. It was nice to see him on the boardwalk, but just didn't do
enough
anything
of Bashir.
I love him.
Anyway,
let's leave it there.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye. Don't worry, you got a whole subplot devoted to Bashir next.
Yeah.
So
how is she going to cope with our man Bashir when it comes round?
She will turn into a quivering wreck, I should think. Yeah, countdown to our man Bashir starts here, I think.
Yeah.
Oh my.
So there we are. They seem to enjoy that well enough. That's good. And finally, it's our man, the Argyle Smurf.
Good day to the finest Orgses. Damien the Argyle Smurf. I sincerely hope you've made it back to bOrgCast territory safely from the foreign climes that is Space Dock Jury and your holiday together. I do hope nobody was maimed or otherwise severely injured in the making of that podcast. And I'm here to talk to you about Destiny, which is either an episode of Deep Space Nine or a really terrible nightclub in Plymouth. Was a really terrible nightclub in Plymouth. Yeah, not a bad episode really. The episode in which we learn that a prophecy very rarely means what it says. Could mean anything you want it to. And we also learn that Tracy Scoggins looks fit no matter how much plasticine you put on her face. Holy smokes. Yeah, not a bad episode at all, I think. I like the way it's dealt with and the way it's realised. I think it's nice to see, for a change, some tropes that would normally be tropes being deliberately sidestepped. I think the Tracy Scoggins character, Elizabeth Lockley's character, I should say, was well handled, and it was in danger of her being a cliche and toadying around and trying the romantic thing with O'Brien, but actually that only lasted one scene and was completely done with, which I think is good. Whereas in other times, that would have been the entire episode. Would have been, trying to elbow away a lovely Cardassian. Which, well, Tracy Scoggins. Jesus, man, you could have had her, but you had Keiko O'Brien. Oh, well, I didn't say that. But, it's a good episode. Like I say, they avoid a lot of cliches, they avoid a lot of tropes. The sexism twist, I can't be bothered to talk to you because you're just a bloke, what are you going to know about engineering? It's subtle enough that it's not clobbering you over the head, like it would have been, perhaps in TNG. It's just there. It's just almost a throwaway line. And apart from that, with her character, it didn't really do anything. That's the only downside, is that she was the annoying antagonist sort of character for a while, and then she was interested in O'Brien, and then got told to fuck off, so she went off in a huff, and then that was sort of that. And then she was fine and forgotten about it by the end of the episode. So maybe could have been something more in there. All in all, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the prophecy thing, bits of the prophecy slowly coming true, but actually being entirely coincidental, whether or not you believe that it is prophecy or not. Well, I suppose we can prove that it is, really, can't we? Because we can say, well, the wormhole aliens don't exist in time, and therefore they did see all this shit happening. The only problem I've got with it is the actual sort of finale, the comet. Well, not the finale. The main point of contention is the comet, which a gravitational pull changes its course while it's still 5 hours away from the wormhole, but there's nothing that could be done to change its course again. Rather than they go off on the "we have to destroy this thing" track, and could they not just put a little thruster on the side of it, turn the thruster on and give it a nudge, so that suddenly it's not aimed at the wormhole no more? I don't understand why that's so difficult to do. Where instead you've got to try and blow it up, and then that doesn't work, and then Aerosmith starts singing, and Liv Tyler's dad gets killed. Well, sorry, wrong film. Well, this one goes more like Deep Impact than Armageddon, actually. But like I say, it just seems to me that if the comet is 5 hours away from the wormhole, then it's only the tiniest, insignificant little course correction that's needed to put it out of harm's way. But that point is skipped over. Apart from that, it's a good and entertaining episode, I think, personally. Other things. We've noticed that the Cardassians women tend to have blue on their spoons, on the centre of their foreheads. But this is the first time I've ever noticed that one neck ridge is also blue. That's a bit strange. I don't know why that is. Because that suggests that it is properly just makeup. You put blue in your spoon and blue on one neck ridge and you're done. And the other thing we've learned is that, maybe this is just me, but Dax looks fucking hot in the captain's chair. That look suits her so well. And on that note, let's just say that's why I always chose her on Dominion Wars, even though she wasn't particularly good stats-wise. God, I missed that game. Anyway, Dax in the captain's chair. I'll be in my bunk. See you in a bit. Toodle pip.
She did look very commanding there,
She
yes.
did,
Excellent.
yes. Nice.
Yeah, and another vote for Tracy Scoggins' charms.
Whereas I didn't...
Well. The blue bits. Yes. The big thing on Tumblr is always that occasionally Garrick appears to have a blue bit in his spoon, so to speak. But anyway, read into that what you will. We also learnt that lots of cities have nightclubs called Destiny, apparently.
Yeah, and apparently they're all shit.
Yeah. Although, at least Worcester, which was my local city when I was growing up, their nightclub was, got cut to the chase and was called Tramps. Go to Tramps. Good grief.
Yeah. Our nearest was called Harlequin.
Whoa, that sounds quite exotic and David Bowie-ish. I'd have gone to a nightclub called Harlequin, but Tramps. It said all you needed to know, really. Anyway. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I has had beer.
Yes. And we've got a whole nother episode to go yet.
Yay!
A Ferengi without profit.
You rewrote the rules of acquisition. I hope you like them.
Is no Ferengi at all.
Greed is dead. There's nothing beyond greed.
Has Quark's leader gone mad?
There's something deeply wrong with him.
I like you! The Ferengi future is in total chaos.
Only money. He's sick, I tell you.
Next time on Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
So there we go. There was bizarre music on that trailer. Very odd.
Was
Profit motive. We have quite the episode opener, with Quark being given Umax by a humanoid called Emmy, who also has very strange hair.
Yeah.
She's played by Juliana Donald, who played the lab assistant Tanya in Matter of Perspective, that one crappy Riker one, where everybody had a different opinion on what actually happened with the Abgar, wasn't it? Dr. Abgar.
This is meaning nothing to me. I know it should.
We watched it 2 years ago. Come on, I'm supposed to be the one with faulty memories.
2 whole years ago, and you're asking me to remember what's probably a not overly memorable episode.
It's not a great episode. It's the one where they keep they go in the holodeck and they recreate the circumstances surrounding Dr. Abgar's death. Everybody remembers it differently, and it's never explained why everybody remembers it differently. I'm not sitting through that episode again with you, I'll tell you that now. Anyway.
Was that the one where the dog did it?
No, that was much later on when the dog did it, because it was a shape-changing alien. No! Let's move on.
Okay. Am I failing?
Yes, you are.
Sorry.
I suggest you listen to our own podcast at some point. Anyway.
I listen to it soon after it's recorded, and then
that's that, obviously, yes. Quark's interrupted by the arrival of Gran, Nagasek, and Mayardu. Hey!
Yay, I love Mayardu.
Apparently they're moving in with Quark. This is straight out of a sitcom, isn't it?
Yep.
Yes, it's this season's Comedy Ferengi episode. The very definition of mileage may vary episode. So you're either on board with us or you're not, folks. It'll be interesting to see how the feedback goes. That's our teaser. Then we get introduced to the B-plot. Bashir gets called to the wardroom to be greeted by applause. He's been nominated for a Carrington Award. Dax nommed him, much to his discomfort. I would have rather liked to have been nommed by Dax, but there we go. And it seems to be a lifetime achievement sort of thing. That's why
it's like, which is, the Lifetime Achievement Award, but at this point he's 29.
Yeah. Quark is having to stay with Ron, which is not going well.
No.
Partly due to the mess and the fact that Ron just walks in and he's cleaning his ears. It's grim. But also the fact that most of Rom's stuff, it turns out, has been filched from the bar.
I love that, though, because actually, because of Ferengi culture, Quark should actually be proud.
In a way.
In a way. I also like the fact that Nog stands up for himself.
Yeah,
He's
does.
like, no, this is my home.
Yeah. Quark decides enough is enough and storms off to tell the Nagus to move out, and then bravely pushes Rom in to do his dirty work, of course. Turns out Zek is in a very good mood and invites them both into Quark's now very empty quarters. Nagus presents the revised rules of acquisition to Quark. The new rules are not to their liking, however, nor Mehadu's, who is sitting blubbing in a corner.
I love that.
They're pretty much the opposite of the old rules, basically. And there's a great scene with the two brothers going through the book in a nicely framed in the window of Quark's quarters. René Auberjonois was the director for this.
All right.
Hereafter referred to as René again, because every time I approach that surname, it's like, approaching a big jump. It's like... Anyway, they're both sitting in the way. It's supposed to be framed like a fairy tale.
Okay.
And they, in order to make this, they had to install a moving starfield in the background. So Quark tries getting some inner message about greed from this by reading the first word of each rule, which was much to our Sprogwan's amusement.
Yeah. He's testing us. Yes, that must be it. It's some kind of test. The book.
You want to hear more?
No, but it must be some kind of code. Read me the first word of every rule.
If, never, keep, profit, good, smile, honesty.
If, never, keep, profit, a good smile, honesty.
What does it mean, brother?
It means absolutely nothing.
It's comedy. There is plenty of comedy in this.
Shimmerman has great comic timing.
Yeah, he's got the chops.
And I think that's partly what our son was appreciating.
And so has
Max
Grudenchik as well, yeah.
Yeah.
The Nagus buys everyone in Quark's a drink and tells the owner he's been ripping off Emmy. He's advised her to buy it wholesale. Quark visibly goes pale.
Yeah.
O'Brien and Bashir are playing darts. Hey! Introduction of darts.
Yes.
Give him a change from racquetball and that's awful skin-type suit that Bashir used to wear for it.
Yeah. Barry Hearn would be very pleased. Now where's the snooker?
Okay. I guess that Tracy may be slightly disappointed that she won't be seeing Bashir in his skin-tight racquetball suit anymore. But there we are. Darts was originally going to be pool.
Oh, well, Barry Hearn would be pleased with that because it's the world.
Shut up about frickin' Barry Hearn.
He's in charge of darts.
I know,
and he's
snooker,
in charge of snooker.
Blah, 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 yeah. Anyway, the writers discovered that Voyager were going to be using pool, and that's the nearest Trek gets to snooker, I'm afraid.
Yeah, well, pool's American. It's easier, would be.
And, burn. And, like American football, where they wear all that armour. Anyway, let's not go
exactly.
There. Then they thought cards, but of course Next Generation already done that with poker.
It's a shame it wasn't strip poker. Troy and strip poker.
Or even Tax with strip poker. But anyway, yes. So instead we end up with darts, which is a nice working class sport for the Chief to introduce.
Yeah, no, it is.
Bashir to,
it does work.
We've got the Chief trolling the Doctor about his nom, putting him off his
throne. I thought
he
said his knob.
That would have been a very different episode. Possibly whilst he was wearing his racquetball gear, I don't know.
Tracy would love that one.
No. Really?
Try saying nomination instead of nom, it would help.
I like nom. Nom makes me smile, although not anymore. It doesn't. No. Unsurprisingly, you put me off my reading, and also the Chief put the...
Did I put you off your stroke?
No! The darts go everywhere, unsurprisingly. But Bashir gets revenge by asking O'Brien how long Keiko is going to be on Bajor.
I like that.
We're not told whether he's put off his stroke as a result of her being back soon or a long time. But anyway, it's a nice moment of friendly jipping between mates, isn't it? Which is good.
I like the out-psyching. It's good.
Yeah. Rom is now running the Ferengi Benevolent Association, which goes down predictably badly with Quark, who's further disturbed to find out he's co-chair. He predicts a lynching on Ferenginar. He gets Zek checked out by Bashir, but the Doctor can find nothing wrong. Nagus announces that he has a gift to present to the Bajoran people for free. Quark and Rom try to break into Zek's shuttle to find out what the gift is. Then Meodo turns up and they get ready to be shot. It's funny. But then he opens the door for them and they find out it's a Bajoran orb. Quark realises it's this that's behind Zek's change. Nog wants to look inside. When his brother tries to stop him, the doors open and he gets an orb experience, rotating on his own Dappo wheel, which is a nice touch.
Yeah.
They recreate the effect from Emissary with the established Bluro vision for this sort of thing. The Nagus is there too, his head appearing in the orb box at one point. Zek in a box. Recovering from the experience, Quark goes through Zek's logs and works out that Zek wanted to contact the aliens to find out what the future had in store, which is a very logical thing.
It is, yeah, it makes sense.
Quark, Rom and Mayadu kidnap Zek and stick him in a sack, which is a really nice film moment. It's nicely directed, this episode.
Yeah.
The Nagus is cheerfully and irritatingly humming. At one point they do a Marx Brothers peek around a corner with their heads sticking round. And then Quark takes Zek in his shuttle. Cool reuse of the model we first saw way back in Season 3 Next Generation in the price. In the wormhole, Quark opens the orb and gets the same treatment Sisko did way back in the pilot, with Prophet talking through the regulars and guest stars, including Mayadu talking for the first time and only time ever.
Yeah.
Tiny Ron there. Apparently they've returned Zek to an earlier state of Ferengi existence when they weren't so aggressively acquisitional. Quark manages to talk them out of changing him because otherwise they get a string of Ferengi visiting them to find out what was happening to their brothers. Zek is also restored to his more obnoxious state. Unsurprisingly, Bashir doesn't win the Carrington.
No.
And the whole plot was an in-joke covering the time Next Generation was up for an Emmy but lost out to a series that nobody was expecting to win.
Okay.
Ron manages to make some profit embezzling money from the Nagus whilst running the Benevolent Fund, which impresses Quark, and off they go down the corridor, arm in arm, laughing, which is a nice ending.
Yeah.
So the B-plot with Bashir is very slight, very few scenes, and the A-plot isn't exactly hard-hitting either.
No, it's not hard-hitting, but it is... I personally find it funny.
Yeah, it's fun, but lightweight.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I get that if you don't like the Ferengi, none of this is going to work for you.
Yeah, and there's a very Ferengi sort of humour, particularly at this point. They've kind of... Gredenchik and Shimmerman have developed a real partnership at this point.
Yeah, they have.
And, yeah, that's just going to get built on. And also, your dude from Toy Story who plays... Wallace Shawn, who plays Grand Nagus Zek as well. You know, they've acted together a few times now as well. They're really building a chemistry.
And I like Mayhadu as well.
Yeah, he's sweet.
Yeah. Because isn't he the same sort of servant, not the same species, but same sort of role as Mr. Hom?
It's basically as another silent servant, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think the joke was with Mr. Hom that supposedly he could talk, but you never saw him talk, a bit like Morn, whereas they actually specifically say in here that Hyperion servants only talk to their masters.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, ultimately, if you don't like Ferengi episodes, you ain't going to like this one, because this is fairly typical Ferengi episode, but if you do enjoy them, it's a lot of fun to be had with it, really.
Yeah, it is. And I love Rom in this as well, when they're going to go off in Zek's shuttle, and Rom's like, sorry, I can't be with you, bye! I like that.
The interplay between the two main Ferengis is fantastic.
Very good. Very, very good. And I also like the idea that the prophets would change Zek, and then the Ferengi are like, nah, you change us, we're going to keep come back and bug you all the time, so you need to change us back and then we'll leave you alone.
So yes, we both enjoyed it, but then we like Ferengi episodes. Let's find out how our feedbackers feel about Ferengi episodes.
Yeah, so the Mark writes, Prophet motive, or the prophets like playing Civilization, or My Dinner with the Prophets. So we get a drive-by divine intervention, a Ferengi Nagus turning away from Prophet, and that's inconceivable. I was expecting to hate this, but it's a lightweight Ferengi comedy that plays its hands with jokes that are far too obvious and quite often hokey. Highly uneventful, Prophet motive further demonstrates its trivial nature with the subplot involving Dr. Bashir and his nomination for a prestigious medical award, the Lifetime Achievement Award, by Dax, who's just fucking with him at this point.
Yes.
Yeah.
That moment towards the end where she says, well, you're taking this really well. He says, really, I'm not. And she said, yeah, I knew that.
Yeah.
Like, she's trolling him. It's basically is an episode of everybody's trolling everybody, basically.
Yes.
The prophets are trolling the Ferengi. Yeah. Dax is trolling Bashir. O'Brien's trolling Bashir, and Bashir trolls him back.
Yeah, pretty much. There'll be a Section 31 bit later. And the Mark continues, Grand Nagus Zek has basically had the moral compass set to a new north by the meddling aliens. I like the idea that at first Quark believes that the Nagus is doing this as some sort of master plan to harvest the killing of a prophet. That Quark takes the Nagus back into the wormhole, hoping he can persuade the inhabitants to change Zek back. This standout scene somewhat redeems the episode, giving Quark some much more subtle and effective one-liners. It's also nicely photographed and completely consistent with Sisko's encounter with the wormhole aliens in Emissary, now over 2 years old. It's a refreshing change of pace, giving Quark a chance to take a stand for good old-fashioned galactic greed. His exaggeration on the repercussions of eliminating greed is hilarious. Quark represents the exact opposite of Starfleet ideals, and so makes for an excellent comic foil in which to parody Trek and the speeches of Kirk and Picard. And I could not stop chuckling during the scene where Zek was being carried around in a sack, humming merrily the whole time. So here's the thing. Zek gets an orb, and in a second-rate cheap ship goes to see the prophets. Then Quark, does it make you wonder how lazy the Bajorans are? Just remember that the ancient Greeks believed their god lived atop a completely scalable mountain, but never bothered to go and check. I don't think they had the orbs at the same time as they had the capacity to go into the wormhole.
No, because they were taken by the Cardassians, weren't they?
And they didn't know the wormhole existed.
Yeah, they just had the one, because that's the one that Kaya Packer gives Sisko, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they haven't got orbs to spare, basically, is their problem. So,
and they haven't got orbs at the same time as the wormhole has been discovered, and they have shuttle. Because the emissary opens the wormhole, doesn't he?
Originally, in the pilot, yeah.
Yeah. So before the emissary, they had no wormhole to go to with the orbs. And then they didn't have enough orbs to go with the orbs into the wormhole. I think that's it. So it's not quite comparable, at least in terms of Bajor's history, but why they haven't done it more often since is a good point, really.
Yeah, it is, really.
Yeah. Thank you!
But maybe, I think perhaps there's more of a sense of awe on the part of the Bajorans.
Yeah.
I mean, if you knew where God lived, would you want to visit?
Maybe they're worried about the anger.
Yeah, the whole entering into the Holy of Holies thing may be slightly off-putting for those with a lot of faith, whereas for a more secular organisation like Starfleet, and let's face it, Ferengi aren't going to care about them either, it's going to be very different, But some good points there, thank you, sir. Doreen has this to say about Prophet Motive. This was quite a funny episode, showing exactly how much power Zek as Grand Nagus has. Quark and Rom assume that the new rules of acquisition will be adopted without question, yeah? We also get another insight into how the Bajoran orbs work. Also that the lost orbs may not be as lost as we thought. Zek's new Ferengi rules of acquisition sound more like the Beatitudes. I like Quark, but as soon as Rom is actually involved, I side with him. Yes. I like how it turns out that Rom was very Ferengi when he was in charge of the Benevolent Fund and embezzled funds.
Yes.
Whilst he's clearly not as greedy and vicious as Quark, he's a Ferengi, isn't he?
Yeah, he is.
Despite what Quark says, I think Rom is the one who saves the day a lot of the time. Thanks for your hard work. I loved Amory on Space Dock Jury, by the way. Peter, you, Lee and Andy always do a fantastic job on Space Dock Jury. Thanks for that too. Doreen. Oh, there you are. There's another plug in there. Thank you, Doreen.
Thank you.
Hey, plugs out of the wazoo at the moment. Splendid. Let's find out, live from Bristol City Centre, what Damien the Argyle Smurf makes of this episode.
Hello there, Orcs. Damien the Argyle Smurf, back again to talk to you about... What was that episode called? Sorry, I got distracted by Quark's handjob face. And the fact that Quark was having a handjob. That kind of put me off. Profit Motive, that was it. Sorry, by the way, for the background noise. I'm sure it's inevitable. I'm doing my best to avoid it, but time constraints mean I have to record this one from Bristol City Centre. It's not perfect, and if the background noise does get too severe, feel free to just omit this one. I don't mind that much, honestly, guys. But yeah, so it's not a dreadful episode. It's entertaining and quirky in a way only a Ferengi episode can be, but and it's not quite as absurd as many Ferengi episodes would be. Maybe I'm thinking of ones that are yet to come, I'm not sure. There's so much Section 31 in these two, I'm being really careful to tiptoe around it. When you actually think about the story as a whole, it's pretty fucked up. It's, Zek goes to talk to the gods, and the gods fuck him up in exchange. It's a bit Greek, isn't it? And ultimately, when you think about it, if you were to write perfect synopsis for this story for someone who's already watched it, it is, Zek went to fuck with the prophets and got his head fucked up, and Bashir isn't given a prize. That's all that actually happens in this story, really. Now, there's some fun character moments, don't get me wrong, and I did enjoy it, but ultimately not a lot has moved on in this story, he says, taking a big skipping leap over Section 31. But yeah, it was fun. I enjoyed it. Can't say a lot more than that. I have to say one thing, in terms of spoilers, there's a fucking great spoiler in the title, isn't there? Profit motive? With profit spelt wrong? I mean, or with profit spelt the way of the prophet, as in the wormhole aliens. Now, if you have any idea where this might be going, then the title of the episode is going to blow it for you now, isn't it? Maybe that's just me, I don't know. No, like I say, I enjoyed it. I'm really struggling for what to say on this one. And that's not just because my notes are 3.5 miles away in my flat. I mean, like I say, I don't want to go into Section 31, because that's not fair on you, Pete. So, nothing happened. Sorry. I can sing a song that'll make... No, I'm not going to do that. Last time you did that was bad. But no, I'm stumped. Sorry. Like I said, I mean, Mehaju does well. That's good. That's good to note. Interesting to hear Tiny Ron's voice as well, if that actually is his voice in the prophecy sequences. I don't think that's ever happened before. That was entertaining. But yeah, like I say, I'm struggling here, so I'm going to shut up and stop rambling and just shut up and go away. Like I said, don't get me wrong, I really did, well, I kind of did enjoy it. I not really did, it wasn't amazing, but it wasn't bad, like one or both of the ones last week. Also, it's amazing how different I was in my feedback to what everybody else said about both episodes, isn't it? Funny how these things go. Oh well, I'm going away. I'm rambling far too much already. Have a lovely podcast. Thank you for doing what you do, and I will hear you both again in a fortnight, and I'll speak to you then. Have a good one. Cheerio. Bye.
That was epic. I particularly love the moment when he was attacked by a flock of seagulls. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for avoiding Section 31. But unfortunately, it appears to be inevitable.
Yeah, it is all a bit Greek.
Yes, it is, isn't it? Yes.
Yeah. And you're right about the spoiler in the title.
It is, isn't it? Yes, that hadn't really occurred to me before. Okay, well, do Drew and Tracy like Ferengi episodes?
Yeah, well, this has got Bashir in it, hasn't it?
It does have a Bashir B-plot, so that ought to have kept it going, even if they don't.
Just finished watching that episode?
Yes.
First thing is, I liked the callback to self-sealing stem bolts. Do you remember when Nog and Jake were trading stuff all the time?
Oh, yeah. A little bit. I was about... What are you talking about, Willis? But now I do remember, yes, I do,
yeah,
yes.
That was good. And we both, as soon as the Grand Nagus come on, we was both like, yeah, we love Zek.
It does make me laugh. There was a couple of times in this episode where I really do kind of laugh out loud.
Yeah.
It was quite humorous. A great Quarky episode, wasn't it?
Yeah. It's just a Ferengi episode, wasn't it?
Yeah, it wasn't too much of any seriousness going on. No. Which doesn't please you because there was no kind of spaceships, or they weren't out on the Defiant or anything like that. But yeah, it was alright.
Julian, you would have thought, would realise that something was wrong with the Nagus, wouldn't he? Because he was saying, no, I've done all the scans, nothing's wrong. But if Quark sort of said to him, hold on, is this really the behaviour of the Grand Nagus, and sort of read him some of the rules of acquisition, you would have thought Julian would go, hold on a minute,
but two things.
Wrong.
Quark didn't tell him that the Nagus was acting funny, i.e. he changed the rules of acquisition, so Julian wouldn't have known. And to be fair, at the end of the day, Julian's a physician. He's looking at someone who's however old and is full of sprite. So
perhaps the point was that Julian was kind of so busy with the Carrington world that he wasn't really...
But again, he didn't know that the Nagus had changed the rules of acquisition.
Perhaps you're right, Quark hadn't explained that, but you would have thought that'd be what he would say. He would say, oh, look, this is why I think something's wrong.
But he didn't say that. He just brings him in and says, oh, he's acting like a Fruit Loop. But he's like, it's like taking your 95-year-old granddad into the doctor's office and saying he's eating too much chocolate. He's on a bit of a sugar bend.
Yeah, I guess so.
Do you know what I mean? I loved the British Reserve in Julian when he was nominated, and he was a little bit like, okay then, and at the end when he was a bit like, I'm gutted. Any other, if it was like an American character, he would have been like screaming from the rooftops.
Is he meant to be British?
You can't not be British with that accent going on there, dear.
He's not British though, is he? I don't know, but is he British descent?
Why? But why wouldn't he be?
I don't know.
They always allude.
He's not a British man, is he?
He is. He's got a very British accent, and O'Brien is Irish, and they always allude to Starfleet characters coming from certain places. Like Picard is clearly French, and he's got his French roots, and you've gone back in time loads of places to different states in America for where the characters come from, so why wouldn't he be British?
I guess so. Yeah, I just thought it was an okay episode, actually. Not too bad, funny, Ferengi.
Yeah.
Nothing big and interesting. It was an enjoyable watch, but I wouldn't really go any further than that.
It was one of these ones where I enjoyed it, but I kind of got distracted halfway through, and I started looking at my phone, and I started doing bits and bobs. So I liked it. It was
enjoyable watch,
something
but
good to have on in the background.
Yeah, definitely.
Nothing testy. Anyway, we'll leave it there.
Okay.
Tra-tra. Bye.
So, it depends rather whether you're talking about the actor or whether you're talking about the actual character, because Alexander Siddig, or to give me his full name...
Siddig El-Tahir El-Fadil Al-Siddig Abdurrahman Muhammad Ahmed Abdul Karim El-Mahdi.
Thank you. Was actually born, as you can tell from that, in...
Sudan.
Yes. And Northern Africa, but spent most of his life in Britain. Hence the British accent. But the character of Bashir, I think, is supposed to be British. We meet his parents eventually.
Yeah, and aren't they British Asians?
Yes, basically. But yes, British. So, yes, he is a Brit as a character. And supposed to spark off O'Brien, of course, who's Irish. So, nice choice of characters. What else did we learn there? Well, we learned that they do like Ferengi episodes, which is good. And apparently Zek is full of Sprite. He presumably needs to be burping a lot if he's full of Sprite, because that's what happens to me when I drink too much Sprite. And that they enjoyed the episode, which is good. Splendid.
Yes, excellent.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Let's finish with Puri.
Hello again, Purry here to talk about Profit Motive. Now, I did say brace yourselves. That was mainly because Ferengi episodes are a bit Marmite. I, for one, have quite a lot of time for them. I think I've said this before, but I do know that a lot of other people might not. And to be fair, this isn't probably one of the best. It's an interesting idea. I think what really makes this episode up is the banter between Quark and Rom. I think that really works out well when they're sharing a room and that sort of thing, and shouting at each other. And the fact that Rom's been robbing Quark blind, or at least nicking a lot of stock, was quite fun. And Rom also getting quite involved in the new Ferengi was good as well. So I think this gave them a bit of a chance. It did expand these characters out a bit, give them a bit of time to breathe. And also, I think Quark involved in a kind of orb experience and meeting the prophets was quite interesting and entertaining, just because so far all these things have been very serious and po-faced, and it's an open hand hides the moss or something, sort of vague, random things said to people in that big wavy thing. And so to have Quark kind of bumbling about in there, I think was quite a nice way to send it up a little. For all, it's not actually taking the piss; it's just a nice way to take some of the seriousness of that. And indeed, the episode is good fun. Most Ferengi episodes are. I think the problem is that your humour may vary. So I quite like the idea of the completely nice rules of acquisition, and Zek basically being de-evolved to when Ferengi were nice people. That's quite interesting. Like I say, it's insubstantial. I mean, you're not going to get any groundbreaking things here. You've just basically got Zek turning up, his manservant crying a lot, and just in general a lot of mucking about. It doesn't really have the high-pitched screaming that kind of epitomised Ferengi episodes later. It is just generally Quark and Rom and occasionally Zek tooling about and getting more and more worried. So, there's not really much you can say about this. I suppose some people will have an absolute hatred of it and they'll maybe be able to pray more, but overall, I liked it. I mean, it's not going to be one of the ones that I go chasing back, and I do notice they never made a Ferengi box set when they were releasing videos, which is telling. But overall, there's nothing wrong with this episode. It's entertaining enough. Actually, to be honest, if you look at it, it's most of the main cast having a holiday, because I was trying to think who else showed up in it. I don't think we really get many. Oh no, we do get all the senior staff, because there's that subplot with Bashir winning an award, and I quite like that as well. For starters, we actually see the whole crew watching telly. They're watching the awards ceremony, which I quite enjoyed, and I did like kind of Bashir half and half. And yes, this is Odo's other thing of I know exactly what you're thinking, because Odo comes into Bashir and does his last bit of if you're so unconcerned, why are you writing your acceptance speech? Basically, these two episodes, Odo had nothing better to do and just thought he'd go around annoying people, and I think that's worth the price of admission alone, if I'm honest. So yeah, overall, I think a quite enjoyable pair of episodes, if not maybe the most substantial. So all that remains for me to say is do keep up the good work. I'll look forward to this podcast, and I'll hopefully feedback on the next two episodes. Until then, bye for now.
Bye, sir. Thank you. Certainly this one isn't very substantial. I don't think you could argue at all. I mean, it clearly has no bearing on the wider arc or... other than the Ferengi characters, obviously it sketches them out a little bit more, but beyond that, no. I think there's probably more in the previous one, particularly the whole sort of Sisko's uncomfortableness with being emissary. That's going to be built on later on. But yeah, this one's completely... and just a fun episode, really.
I like the idea that Odo has nothing to do other than annoy people.
Yes, I know. Again, everybody's trolling everybody in this. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Cool.
Are we on to section 31 now?
We ought to do section 31, yes. We have 2 bits. Is your bit and the Mark had a bit, did he not?
Yes.
So let's find out what the Mark had to say section 31-wise. Basically anything that sort of spoils the ongoing arc. If you've not seen Deep Space Nine before, for heaven's sake, don't listen to the next bit. But
fast forward as long as the bloke says.
That'll be me then. The bloke. I'm the bloke now. To avoid section 31 spoilers, please fast forward 2.5 minutes.
Our official designation is Section 31. Never heard of it. We keep a low profile. Works out better that way for all concerned.
And what does Section 31 do?
In the light of later revelations about Julian Bashir, the B story is fascinating, as it's possible that winning could lead others to discover his secret origins. Because he's been nominated for a Lifetime Achievement Award at the age of only 29.
If he'd have won, yes, but he didn't have any control over winning or not, so...
Could that explain Bashir's sort of nervousness?
Panic. It would explain his panic, wouldn't it? He may have been exposed had he won this.
Yeah.
Interesting point. Interesting point. And what was your point, my dear?
My point was, you think about right towards the very end of season 7, and what happens with the Ferengi.
Oh, I can't remember that.
How...
Oh, you mean who ends up in charge of the Ferengi?
And all the changes that have happened in Ferengi society.
Yes, well, Robin's obviously taking a few pointers at this, at this moment. Yeah.
Well, I know that Quark is like, oh, you de-evolved him or whatever... But doesn't, in a way, because you get new rules of acquisition, you get updates to the rules of acquisition, don't you?
I can't remember. It's been so long since
I've seen season 7, and they're not as extreme as these here.
They're a sort of halfway house, aren't they?
But this is a foreshadowing.
Yep.
Of the development of the Ferengi. And you have to remember that the prophets don't experience time as linear. So they've kind of de-evolved Zek, but they've also evolved him at the same time, if you think about it.
Okay, so thank you for everybody who fed about this time.
Thank you!
Next time, in bOrgCast 8.9, recording Wednesday the 6th of July, don't get caught out, day earlier, we shall be covering the episode Visionary.
Means nothing to me.
Yeah, and me neither, to be honest, until I saw a picture. And then I had a vague recollection. It involves O'Brien moving forwards in time.
Right.
Yep. And Distant Voices, where Bashir starts rapidly aging. This one I do remember.
I remember that one.
Yes. Can't remember if either of them are any good or not.
No, but I remember more about aging Bashir than I do about the other one.
Yeah, and it ought to keep Tracy fairly happy anyway.
Well, not when he's all ancient.
Possibly not. But you might find him cute then. You never know.
Oh.
We shall find out next time on bOrgCast.
8.9 when we cover Bashir's wrinkly penis.
Oh! No, we will not be covering that. Oh. Really?
Sorry.
Cheery bye.
Bye. by the lovely people at GeekPlanetOnline.com.
All music referenced is for illustrative purposes only, and no copyright infringement is intended. The music at the beginning of this podcast was produced by the 86th Floor on YouTube and is used with their kind permission.
To contact us, you can use the forums at GeekPlanetOnline.com.
Visit our Tumblr site at bOrgCast.tumblr.com, where you'll find images accompanying the episodes discussed in this cast.
Send email messages or MP3s to bOrgCast@GeekPlanetOnline.com.
Or you can contact us via Twitter on rev_org or bOrgCastAmmo. Hashtag bOrgCast.
Shut it down!